Okay, so ignore this ugly microphone. I'm sick of how ugly this microphone is, but we're gonna have to move on, and this is the only place it's gonna sit nicely. So you're gonna have to put up with it. I'm very sorry. However, I have been reading like a madman this April. I've read 9 books so far. So I thought I'd share them with you before I go to Europe, especially. I was gonna put my TBR into this little update video for May. However, I thought maybe I'll do a video sort of for the 2 months while I'm away, talking about what I want to read and maybe getting some recommendations from you guys as to what I should add to my European TBR. So yeah, I read 9 books, and I'm on to my 10th. I'm not sure if I'll finish the book I'm currently reading by in the next few, like 3 or so days. But in saying that, I think I might because I'm really enjoying it. I thought I would start. I'm going to go through the list in how I've read them. So this is all the books I've read. I've read 25 books so far for this year. This is my new reading journal. I got her yesterday. And I'm going to try and like write more. That was one of my goals this year, like write about what I'm reading. But I've done that very sporadically. So through buying this new beautiful moleskin, I'm hoping that that motivates me. However, I should probably just start telling you guys what I read because 9 books is quite a lot. I think it's 9. Hopefully, I can count. I was never too good at maths, but hopefully, I'm right here. Also, this mug has a crack. Not too happy about that. I just got done. Well, I'm actually halfway through the start. Maybe it's called Ziggy or Ziggy Stardust movie. My latest obsession as of this weekend is David Bowie. So I've been watching that, which has been really motivating. Anywho's on to what I've been reading. Oh, actually, circle back. I'm so chaotic. Any David Bowie book recommendations or anything I should consume, let me know because I need them in my life. So first book I finished was Devotions by Mary Oliver. Now I sort of had this sitting on. Oh, what's this? Bookmark. That can stay there for good measure. I've had this like sitting on my bedside table for a very long time, and I would just like sporadically read poems, like maybe like 30 poems or something. I'd wake up in the morning, read it, and I finally got through this. Really liked it. I love Mary Oliver. I think she is a wonderful and marvelous poet. There's obviously poems in here that I liked more than others, and poems that I sort of couldn't get around as much. I don't think she's my favorite poet or anything like that, but I'm so glad to have read this collection of works because now I feel like I've read a good amount and of her chosen poems that she believes that people should read. So this is just an anthology of selected poems that she believes are her best or the ones that she would love people to read. So I got this last year and I just sort of read it slowly, and I happened to finish this month. This month. So that was nothing crazy, nothing that special, but I'm glad to have finished it. I then moved on to this. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but this isn't really my genre or sort of book that I'm into, but Tobias Madden is a good friend of mine now who I made through Book Talk and promoting his first 2 books as good alternatives to other queer YA books. This is a queer YA book. This is his 3rd novel, and I was actually really lucky enough to interview Tobias at the book launch in the In Conversation part. I don't think there was a recording of it. I have a few clips of the night. It was very, very special to get to ask Tobias some questions and really get around the queer community and have a group of people passionate about allowing young people to have books like this, because even though I grew up maybe like 5 years ago in Australia, there were no books like this around. And these are in school libraries, they're accessible, and I think they provide a really authentic portrayal of what it's like to grow up gay and queer in Australia. This book is set on a cruise ship, so it does move a little bit away from Australia, but this is the original setting of all 3 books, where they all start from, is Ballarat, which is like an hour away from my home in rural Victoria. And yeah, they touch on a lot of queer topics, but also the stories don't center around the protagonist being queer. They're queer people who just happen to be queer, who also have a lot of other things going on in their life, like all queer people do. So really grateful to have had the opportunity to interview Tobias, talk to Tobias, share a really meaningful conversation, and get this early. I have got 2 copies of this because Penguin accidentally sent me 2. So maybe I'll give one away or something. But yeah, new release. If you're looking for something like a queer YA book, then this is nice. What did I read next? I then read, okay, another special book. So next was A Finger in the Fish's Mouth by Derek Jarman. Now, if you don't know who Derek Jarman is, Derek Jarman was originally a filmmaker, a gay filmmaker who created some very, very impactful queer movies that still have a really profound legacy today. And he was very central in the queer London community. And Olivia Laing is who put me on to Derek Jarman. She loves Derek Jarman. It's her idol. And Derek Jarman is an icon. He is a legend. He's most famous for his Project Blue, which I actually read in March. I have the script of it, but it's a film which is just a blue screen, and it's meant to simulate the effects of going blind due to HIV. And it was the last thing he created before he died due to HIV and AIDS-related complications. And this book here, I listened to a London Review Bookshop podcast of when this was published in 2018. This is a republication. So this book was originally published in the 60s, and there was only a few copies, as so many poets released like 20 copies of their books, like Patti Smith did, for example. And then he believed it was rubbish, and he collected all the copies but 2. So there was one left with the British Library, and there was one left with another man. And then Derek's partner actually found one of these at Prospect Cottage, which was where Derek Jarman lived. You can do research, but he lived in this cottage in the rural countryside of England, where nothing was meant to prosper, and he grew this beautiful farm of flowers and wildflowers and sculptures in this cottage that had so many books, and it's iconic. You can still go and visit it. But then Derek's partner said, "What's this?" when they were living together, and Derek said, "Oh, rubbish! Don't even read it." And his partner believed him, and then this young woman actually came across this in the British Library and went to Derek's partner and asked if it could be republished. And he said, no, Derek thought it was rubbish. And he finally read it, and then he went, wow, this isn't rubbish. So they did republish this. However, it's then gone out of print. This is a very, very hard book to track down, and it's a very, very expensive book to track down. I put this out onto social media, and a beautiful, beautiful follower actually replied and offered to send me their copy, which this is one of my biggest prized possessions, because although the poetry isn't anything groundbreaking, it's something about its impact and in the queer community, and it's a work of art. Like, look at that cover. It's got a story behind it, and that's something I really like. So yeah, the poems, they're somewhat gay. They're a lot about nature and the surroundings and growing up in a creative environment, and they all have these corresponding images which aren't in, like, they're like greens and blues, and a very, very interesting concept. I read it in one sitting, and I'm very glad to have read this and to have it in my life. Thank you so much, Arnold, for sending me this. I do love it. And really funny story about Derek Jarman as well. Derek Jarman is the person who told Deborah Levy to write. So Deborah Levy was working at a cinema, and Derek would frequent there, and they got onto the topic of Deborah liking to write, and he was like, you need to write. Why aren't you writing? You need to write. Start writing. So we can thank Derek Jarman for Olivia Laing, probably as well, but Deborah Levy. So I read The Finger in the Fish's Mouth, loved it. Not my favourite, but it's an honourable mention. I then actually... Oh, I missed one. Sorry, I've skipped ahead. Oh, actually, I don't know if I even have it here. Oh no, I do. I just haven't talked about it. I read The Latest Winter by Maggie Nelson whilst I was on my poetry kick. I've read actually quite a lot of poetry. I've read 4 poetry books this month. The Latest Winter is a collection of poems by Maggie Nelson. It's an anthology. It follows landscapes and sex and curiosity and love and terror, all these things that we know Maggie Nelson for, and I really, really enjoyed it. Not my favourite of her works. There's obviously other books that I like, The Argonauts and Bluets, which I love, and I really did enjoy this, but yeah, if you're looking for some poetry, get it. I think there's Shiner, is it Shiner, her other collection that I've really been wanting to read in terms of poetry, and I've got a copy of Like Love on the way from Black Wolf Press from America, so I'm getting the American variant. I have seen it in the store in the Australian variant already, but the publishing house offered to send me a copy. I said yes, so I'm getting the American cover, which I'm so much happy about because I do not like the Aussie cover. Ugh, yuck. So I read that. I then moved on to. I've literally missed so many books here. Uh, I read the autobiography of Read by Anne Carson, which is a Greek retelling of the Hercules and Geryon myth. It follows this red-winged dragon, but it's set in present day, who is gay and queer and ostracized, and it's amazing. It's very, very sad. It's sort of a fever dream, this book. I honestly can't even remember what I read, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. This cover, stunning, love it. And yeah, I'm so glad to have read this. It yeah, I think I need to reread this because there's so much in it, and it's disturbing. Yeah, it's just so impactful, and I need to read it again. So very, 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 very keen to get to this again. But from what I read for the first time, I really did enjoy it. Okay, now I'm actually back on track, I think. I then read Wool Gathering by Patti Smith, and oh my lordy, the next two books are actually going to be on my top 10 list for this year. I am betting money on it. I'm trying to drink my coffee before it goes cold and before it gets too late in the day. Wool Gathering by Patti Smith. This is a collection of stories that are all true from Patti's life. There's poems, there's short little stories, there's longer stories in here. This is absolutely phenomenal. I think this is my favorite Patti Smith of all time. Cami and I are about to do a tattoo tomorrow for this. I'm getting this put into my sleeve because this book, there's nuggets everywhere in this. Like if you look at how much I underlined, every fold is like, you could turn to any page and there'll be something that will impact you forever. Like I'm going to read you this because I feel like this is a random page, page 16. Blowing upon it candles a star, what does one desire? A partner, a freewheeling moon, or perhaps to hear again as one heard as a child, a music, curious, optimistic, as plain and elusive as the call of the real permitting a summer night. Expanding squares of laughter and delight, of everyone dancing, just dancing. Patti, stop. You can't. I feel like not many people know about this book, or like less people see it than Just Kids, for example, or M Train, or The Year of the Monkey. But this, I feel like you have to read it. It's a spiritual experience. It swallowed me whole. I sobbed. I laughed. I love this book more than anyone could ever imagine. And I think everybody here needs to read it. So if you take one thing from this video, it's that you need to go and buy a copy of Wool Gathering because it's going to change your life. And look at her on the back. I want one of these like little bonnets. Like, look, she has a bonnet. Patti has a bonnet. I need a bonnet. Oh, I'm going to get my mum to knit me a bonnet. That's what I've taken from this video. I then moved on to Deborah Levy's things I don't want to know. The Cost of Living. And oh my lordy, another one of my favorite books of all time. I've talked about this at length, I think, the other day. And so I'm not going to cover it too much because I also talk about it in the vlog that's coming out. So all you need to know is this is a writer's on writing. It is set in Deborah's 50s, and it's the second book in the series, and it follows her in the aftermath of a divorce and navigating and grappling with change and what change is worth it, what change is not, how to write during these periods of change, and the importance of writing and solitude. Nuggets in here again. I could just pick any page. This almost got us more than Wool Gathering. My copy is falling apart. There's pages coming out, but I love it that way. I loved the cover. I loved everything about this. I loved it, and I'm excited for Real Estate. I do want to read Real Estate really soon, but I think I'm going to wait till I come home because I want to read it in physical copy. I feel like there's something about reading these autobiographical livings in hard copy, but I don't know. Ben read it in Greece. And so I'm sort of tempted to read Real Estate while I'm in Greece, but we'll see. Maybe I'll bring it. No. I don't have the room for that. Anywho's, I then moved on to Pond by Claire Louise Bennett. Again, I've already talked about this on here. Pond, it was interesting. Big brain energy, hard to wrap my head around. I found myself, my interest and my concentration waning at certain points just because of how complex every sentence and the words are within this. But the protagonist in this, pretty much it sets the scene, is she decides to move away to a small cottage that's isolated with a pond. And we follow her through the mundane every activities. And I like that. I like the idea of just daily life and romanticizing that. And that's what Pond does. And the protagonist is funny and she's a little bit vulgar, but there's nuggets in this, and it's vignettes. It's amazing. I love the Fitzcarraldo edition of it. The structure of this is what I liked. The chapters aren't too long, but then there's like a short chapter in between every longer chapter. I love the titles of the chapters. So yeah, a bit of a more difficult read, and it wasn't my favorite by any means, but I still enjoyed, and I'm glad to have read it, and I'm keen to read Checkout 19. So I read that. I then read Stubble Archipelago by Wayne Constanbaum. This book, I liked it. It's gay, it's horny, it's queer, it's poetry. I got this at Metropolis Bookshop in Melbourne CBD, and I just saw the cover and I thought it looked like a grinder pick, hence why I bought it. So I've read this in one sitting, and again, lots of good bits in here to underline. And I think it was a very raw depiction of cruising and gay culture in some places and some points of queer people's life. So yeah, if you're looking for some poetry, something a bit different, a bit more explicit, then Stubble Archipelago could be right up your alley. He has published a lot of books as well. I think he's published something like 20 books, and I do really like this edition. So I'm going to keep them in mind to contact when I'm doing my own collection. Semiotext with an E on the end. So yeah, cool. Those are all the books I have read so far, completed, really enjoyed. It was actually a really good reading month. And then I'm on to My Work by Olga Rand. Olga Rand. It's translated from Danish. It talks about motherhood, and how, as a mother, mothers give their bodies to someone else, and what's the cost of that. I am only 50 pages in. 60 pages. I sat down yesterday morning in one sitting and just read that. And I am enamored with this. I honestly think this might be one of my new favorite books of all time. Bit early, but I'm sort of calling it. I will try. I think I'm going to finish this over the next few days. I think by the end of the week. But something about sitting there and eating up 50 pages at a time is really calling my name. So we'll see. Don't want to talk too much about it yet. I will update you on Friday. I'm going to film another update video, I think, on Friday. I have work Monday to Thursday. And then I only have 2 days after that before I go to Europe. 2 days of work left. It's less than 2 weeks now till I leave to Europe, which is exciting. I've got so many books I want to read. So many physical books that I want to get to, but I think it'll only be this and maybe one other book before I leave. But nevertheless, a good reading month. I'm very happy. What did you read in April? I'd be very curious to hear about what you read. If you've read any of these, what were your thoughts on them? Do we share any of the same opinions? I love to hear from you. Send me a DM on Instagram if you want to talk more in depth. But yeah, that's about it. I'm going to the movies tonight. I'm going to see Challenges with Zendaya with my best friend. I'm trying to spend a little bit of time with her before I leave the country. So I had a voucher. We're going to go do that, eat some choc tops, eat some popcorn, which is going to be very enjoyable. Yeah. Hope you're well. I hope you had a lovely weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.